Namaskaraha. Welcome to our next session on the Yogic life. So let us just do a quick recap before we proceed further. So what we have been saying from the beginning is that human beings have an infinite desire, and we also said that when we look at large things like the mountains or the ocean or the night sky, we momentarily experience that infinite desire. We momentarily come in contact with the human dharma, which is to seek the infinite, and this is a universal experience for all human beings. So that is what we said, and the yogis realized this, uh, that human beings experience this, come in contact with the human dharma when they see large things, even though these large things are not infinite, but they momentarily satisfy the infinite desire. So that is how the yogis of the past developed a science around this. And we also further said that to understand the meaning of yoga, we need to understand what humans are. Are we in the animal kingdom or not? And we try to analyze what is the unique characteristics of animals, what is the unique characteristics of human beings. We said the unique characteristics of animals, the animal dharma is the ahara, nidra, bhayam, and maituna. And we also talked about, we had discussions about do the human beings fall in the animal category or not. But we finally said that human beings are not just intelligent animals. There is a qualitative difference in the human beings when compared to animals, and that qualitative difference is the ananteshana, which is the desire for the infinite. So even though all beings seek happiness, but happiness varies for different beings. Human beings also seek happiness, but the unique characteristic of human being is to seek the infinite. And the human beings have also evolved from animals. Since we have evolved from animals, we also have the pashu dharma in us. So we have a unique situation where we have two dharmas. So that is what in the next slide we're talking about, that there is a qualitative difference between the humans and animals, also between the animals and plants, and it's just not a quantitative difference. Because of the qualitative difference, each of them, the jati beda, each of them are placed in separate categories. So that the manava dharma or the human dharma, which is unique to the human beings, is to seek the infinite. And then further, we also said that human beings have two dharmas, the pashu dharma and the manava dharma. So there is always a constant struggle going on between the two dharmas, pashu dharma and manava dharma. Most human beings do not realize that they have this manava dharma, and so they are always engaged in the pashu dharma without realizing this. So they don't even engage in the battle because they don't know. They're constantly only engaged in the pashu dharma. So but for some people, their inner eyes open and they realize what their human dharma is. So then they actively engage in the battle, and they take actions to proceed further spiritually and to proceed to attain that infinite, make progress to attain that infinite. So that is what we talked about. And then further we also said that yoga, what is yoga? Yoga is the union of the jivatma with the paramatma. When your small I, when your little I, ahankara, becomes one with the cosmic I, that is the state of yoga. So the goal of yoga is to attain that manava dharma, which is to attain that infinite entity, experience and realize that infinite. That is the goal of yoga. So we also talked about, when we talked about the qualitative difference, we also said dharma. So dharma is asadharana gunaha, the unique characteristics. Just like fire has the quality of burning, water has quality of making things sweat. Those are the unique characteristics of fire and water. Similarly, the unique characteristic of human beings is to seek the infinite, and yoga is that which helps us to attain that infinite, attain and realize that infinite. So, and also further we said there is another unique thing in human beings, is that we have a free will. We have a free will. We have compared to other beings, whether it is living or non-living, human beings have a free will. We have the choice whether we want to follow the human dharma or not, whether we want to follow the human dharma or to follow the Pashu dharma. That is a choice we have. So we can consciously choose what we want to do. Do we want to follow the Pashu dharma or do we want to follow the human dharma? That is the choice that only human beings have, not other beings. Other beings, they do not have a choice. If there is an animal, it has to follow its dharma. A cow has to follow its dharma. It cannot behave like a goat. A cow has to behave like a cow. So each of the animal has to follow its own dharma. But human beings have a choice. We can either be like an animal, like follow only the ahara nidra bhayam and all the material pursuits, or we can follow the manava dharma, that kind of a swatantra ichcha which is not there in other beings. So also we said that the human beings, most of the human beings do not understand that they have this manava dharma in them. So what they do is they do not follow manava dharma at all, and what they're actually following is 99.9% of the people are only following the animal dharma because they're not even aware of it. So then further we actually said, last week we talked in detail about yoga, which is the union of the finite with the infinite. And also we said that yoga is how it is misunderstood, and how the term yoga is not understood in today's world. Even though yoga has become very popular among the all over the world, yoga has become very, very popular in yoga studios, and there are a lot of yoga students all around the world. But it is very sad that not many, actually most of them do not know what the real meaning of yoga is. So if you ask people, the teachers who are teaching yoga in different studios, what is the meaning of yoga, nobody will be able to explain to you what the meaning of yoga is. Most of them will say that it is, that they'll talk about chakras, or they'll talk about bringing the mind in balance with the body, or tuning the chakras. All sorts of explanations you'll get. So they do not have any idea about what yoga is. So but the thing is, they also focus a lot on yoga asanas. But what we have to understand is that yoga is not just yogasanas. Yoga is not just yogasana. Yogasana is just one aspect of yoga. Yogasanas are no doubt part of yoga, and but the yogic life is much beyond yoga. The ultimate goal of yoga is much beyond just yogasanas. Yogasanas is just one aspect of it. And also when we talked about that yoga means union, it is the union of the finite with the infinite. Actually, all of us, we have a birth and a death, right? We have a birth and a death. We know how tall we are, we know how we are physically. We can see that physically we have a beginning and an end, both in terms of the time as well as at any given moment we have a size. See, we know that where our body begins and where it ends, right? We feel finite in a very, very typical sense. We do not feel infinite. We feel finite. So we have a name which is attached to our existence. We have a name, Rama, Shyama, Gita, Lakshmi. Like that, we have a name to our individual existence, and we feel limited. We have a name to our limited existence, right? At any particular point, if I'm Ram, I don't feel like I'm Shyam. I only feel like I am Ram. I do not feel like I'm Ram and Shyam and Govinda and Gita. I only feel I am Ram. So if Ram is going to the store to buy something, then he doesn't think that he has reached the store until he actually gets there, right? If he's at home, he doesn't feel like he has reached the store. So at any particular point in time, we are at a particular place at a particular moment in time. We don't feel that we are in different place. If I'm in India, then I feel I'm in India. If I'm at my house, I feel I'm at my house. So we're limited by the Desha, Kala and Patra. So any person feels that they have a particular existence which has a beginning and which has an end. And also we have a physical size which has a beginning and end. And also in terms of where we are at a particular point in time, which place we are, we also have a sense of that. And so if I go from place A to place B, then I know how long my feet is, how my foot is that long. I have that experience. it is not longer and shorter, not longer or not shorter than what it is actually is. So that is all, those are all my limitations. Those are all indication of my finite existence, my limited existence. I do not feel like I'm Ram, Shyam, Govinda, Gita. So I only feel I am Ram, and until I get to another place, I don't feel I have reached that place. I'm at a particular point in time, at a particular place. So these are all, it's not that I'm beyond the Desha, Kala and Patra, right? I'm not beyond that. So those are all the indications of limited existence, right? So yoga means the union of the finite with the infinite. What does that mean? Means actually we are not finite. We are not finite. We feel we are finite because of our physical existence. We feel we are finite. We are feeling that we are finite. We feel that we have a certain beginning and end. We feel all of those things. We have a particular name that is associated with us, and we feel that, you know, if I'm in India, then I feel I'm in India. I don't feel like I'm in America. I don't feel like I'm in Africa. If I'm in India, then I feel I'm in India. So wherever each of us is located, we feel like we are located in that particular place. So by definition, that is actually a definition of a finite entity. So we feel we are finite. We are not everywhere at once, right? We are not everywhere at once. So that is the feeling of being finite. But actually the matter of the fact is that we are not finite. We feel finite, but we are not finite. We are actually infinite, but we feel finite. So the yoga is that process by which we attain the union of that finite entity with that infinite entity. So we also said that, you know, that the mind has no shape. We talked about how the mind has no shape. So whatever we think, we become like that. If at any particular point, if mind is thinking about something, we just become like that. So also we further said that yoga has an impact on all aspects of life. It has all aspects of life: politics, economics, social, you name it, and it has an impact on every aspect of life. So the goal of yoga is to teach us how to become human, inside and outside. How can we become human beings inside and outside? So 99.9% of the people, we are animals inside, but humans on the outside. But how can we become humans on the inside as well as the outside? That is what yoga teaches us. So going further, we also talked about that you know, this aham brahmasmi is something that is heard everywhere, but we said that that, you know, aham brahmasmi is just not reading a book. You don't become aham brahmasmi just by reading a book. You do not realize that Brahma just by reading a book. We get that aham brahmasmi experience when we do sadhana, when we close our eyes, separate ourselves from the external world, and we get that real practical experience that I am that Brahma. So it is basically an anubhavaha, a sakshatkaraha, or an anubhuti. That is the feeling, that anubhutihi you get when you go inside through sadhana. And sadhana is the essence of yoga. So the union of the small ego with the cosmic ego is yoga. So just to understand it, if we take the example of a river which is flowing from the mountain peak, so it eventually reaches the sea. So the consciousness is also the same. The consciousness that exists within each of us, it wants to merge with that infinite ocean of consciousness. So we are dissatisfied to maintain our separate entity. We do not want to maintain a separate existence. That is the reason we have the infinite desire. And we realize that infinite desire when we see big things. We want to realize that Brahma. We want to realize I am that Brahma. Aham Brahma Asmi is what we want to realize. That is what is the desire which is there in all human beings, but we do not realize. So as human beings, we want to realize that infinite entity, and that is our true nature. That is our true nature. That is what is yoga. But actually there is a little bit more we have to say. We talked about the sentence aham brahmasmi. I am Brahma. I am that infinite being. So we also talked about that there is a difference between just saying Aham Brahmasmi, or just reading that, or just reciting it, or just memorizing it, versus becoming the meaning of that. There is a night and day difference between the two things, right? So the just speaking the words versus realizing that meaning, becoming that meaning. So we also talked about how when we look at the night sky, or when one looks at the ocean, then or when we look at huge mountains, it gives us certain thrill that and human beings like to see those things. That is what distinguishes human beings as different from other beings. So not only we are not finite, but we get very attracted and in a very, very deeply, in a subtle way, excited, that it chills down the spine, right? When we see something that gives us this feeling of greatness or vastness within us, so we can see that when we look at big things, we get that feeling of greatness, but it is a momentary experience that when we that we can actually, this is actually a momentary experience. When we see the ocean or the mountains, that is a momentary experience, but what the yogis seek to do is actually more than that. Yogis, they want to become the meaning of that sentence, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahma, I am that Brahma. So there is a night and day difference between just reading a sentence or reciting it or memorizing that sentence versus becoming that meaning. So yoga is science which helps us to become that meaning. How can I realize that Brahma? It is not just a bookish knowledge. It is not just reading something. It is just becoming the true nature. It is becoming what is our true nature, realizing our true nature. So that is what is the essence of yoga. So moving actually further, so when we say yogi wants to become the meaning of that sentence Aham Brahmasmi, what do we actually mean by that? So yoga is actually a science, right? Yoga is a science. It is a very broad science, and within that science there is the entire science of mind. Within the science of yoga there is the science of mind, which we will be talking a lot about later on when we read the when we read the the Karapatras. We'll be talking a lot about the science of mind. But as an introduction to the science of mind, just a little bit I want to explain over here. So mind has no shape. Mind does not have any shape of its own. So the mind becomes the way we think, right? The mind becomes, as one thinks, so one becomes. So the fact that mind does not have a shape of its own, so whatever we think, we become like that. Like if you think like the brain has a shape, the brain has a shape, but the mind does not have a shape. So the brain and the mind are not the same. They're two different things. So we'll be talking about the mind a lot later on. The mind does not have a shape of its own. So as one thinks, so one becomes. If one is actually thinking about money or stock market all the time, or one is thinking about business all the time, then one's mind becomes very, very crudified by those thoughts. It becomes very crudified by those thoughts, and accordingly our likings and dislikings change. So like how we think, we become like that. So if you're thinking about the Panchabhutas, if you're always thinking about the Panchabhutas, if you're thinking about money, you're thinking about house, jewelry, if you're thinking about Panchabhutas, then your mind becomes like Panchabhutas. So it depends on what you're thinking at a particular point in time, and according to what you think, your likings and dislikings also change. If you are always thinking about money, then your liking towards money increases. So on the other hand, if you're thinking about something noble, then your mind also becomes noble. So at any particular point in time, we can assess the state of one's mind. At any moment in life, we can assess what is the state of our mind just by taking a moment. We just stop a moment and just see what are we thinking at this particular point in time. Just take a moment to think at that particular point in time in one's life, what am I being attracted to? What is that thing that I'm being attracted to? There are like some people who are attracted towards money. Some people are attracted to drink alcohol. Some people like to smoke cigarettes, they're always thinking about when can I take the next cigarette. Some people like to go to party, they're always thinking about when can I go and go to another party. Some people are thinking about always about the stock market going up and down. So by that we know what are the things we are attracted to at a particular point in time. So those people feel so attracted to those things, they just love it, they like it. And those people who like to party, they would not want to even miss one weekend. They're always planning what they want to do that weekend. So on the other hand, there are other people who don't like any of these. They like to go to hiking in the mountains, in the wild. They like to see the nature. They like to see the large more ocean and the big mountains. So they prefer the solitude of the nature or the quietness of the nature. So then there is this whole range of likings and dislikings amongst human beings, right? That actually reflects their state of mind. Depending on what you are attracted to, it reflects your state of mind. And also to note that this status is not a static status. So our attractions keep changing, and the status of the mind also keeps changing. If you're attracted to the Panchabhutas, then the mind becomes like a Panchabhuta. It just gets crudified. On the other hand, if you're attracted towards subtle things, then the mind gets elevated. So at any point in time, we can see if the mind is getting elevated or it is going down. It's like a clock. It's going. It's just going up and down, up and down, up and down. So we can evaluate, what is the status of our mind at any point in time. So the key concept is whatever we think, the mind becomes just like that. If the mind thinks about the infinite entity, then it becomes infinite. So sometimes the status of the mind is not static. So sometimes when you are young, when you are 21 years old, then you might like to go party, you might like to go to discotheques, but then after 5 years or 10 years down the line, your likings may completely change. Something drastically changes, and excuse me, something drastically changes, and then you might never go to another discotheque ever in somebody's life, right? They may be attracted to it towards it when they were young, but then as they grow older, like maybe 5 years down the line, their likings and dislikings change. So people's likings and dislikings keep changing, and so people change. It does not mean that somebody's mind is going to be created like that. The mind is extremely malleable. It is completely changeable. It is shapeable, right? It is in our hands how we want to shape our mind. So if you're thinking about crude things, then the mind also becomes crude. So as one thinks, one becomes. It means one can have an impact. So we are not a passive participant. We're not just passively looking at something. Mind changes based on what one thinks. I can choose. I have that ichha. I have the swatantra ichha to choose what I want to do at a particular point in time. One can choose about what one is going to think about. So one is not a victim of the fate, right? We're going to talk about fate also a lot going forward, the fate or bhagya, what it actually means. One is not a victim here. One is not a passive participant without any control. It is not like I cannot control my mind. It is not like I go wherever my mind goes. So one can opt to think about what one wants to think about. So I have a choice what I want to think about. Depending on what one thinks about, the mind will become just like that. So that is what we need to remember. Depending on what we think about, mind will become like that. So if somebody is always thinking about the share market, then the mind will become crudified like that. If the mind is thinking about the sky, the beauty of the sky, then the mind will become more subtle, right? If one is thinking about the infinite, then the mind becomes like that infinite. As one thinks, so one becomes. If one thinks about something that is very, very subtle and vast, having no beginning or no end, then the mind becomes like that. If you think about the infinite, then the mind becomes like the infinite. It takes on the qualities of what you think, right? It takes on the qualities of that, whatever you're thinking. So this is the essence of what it is to do yoga sadhana. It is to do yoga sadhana. In yoga sadhana, you're doing concentrated thinking of the infinite. So when you do the concentrated thinking of the infinite, so eventually you become that infinite. So that is the essence of yoga. So this particular slide so far, what I have talked, can somebody summarize? Puspalata Bhagini, do you want to summarize?
Bhagini.
Okay.
So we have talked about the human dharma and the Pashu dharma. Animals have Pashu dharma, whereas humans have predominantly Pashu dharma, and with the unique this one human dharma also. Just a summary. Now we are talking about yoga. Yoga is a science which is a union of finite and infinite. The Pashu dharma only has the quality of going to meet the finite things, whereas human dharma we try to meet to the infinite, and that is achieved by yoga. Yoga is the science which is a union of between the infinite and the finite and the infinite, or between the small ego I, small I, and capital I, cosmic I. Now this yoga helps us to attain the infinity, and this is done by going into that this one, experiencing what it is. So for that we have to know what is our mind, and the definition of mind is, when mind, our body has two parts. One is the body, finite body, which has a beginning and an end, and the other one is a mind which has no beginning and no end. Now this mind has no shape, and it becomes what we think. So if we are only constantly thinking of the finite things or to go achieve money, or to go into all the things of life which are not very necessary for us, or eating or something like that, we just remain so. But if we think about subtle things, we come out of this and try to reach the infinite, and we control our mind gets elevated actually to meet the infinite. I think I have summarized.
Yes, Bhagini, nicely said. Only one thing I would like to clarify is that we don't say that mind has no beginning and no end. Mind is not infinite. Mind is not infinite. Mind has an end.
Okay.
Yeah, in yoga we don't say mind is infinite. That I want to clarify. We'll be talking about mind a lot later on, so then we'll get more clarity on that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the key message over here is that we are not a passive participant. So mind is not a passive participant. Mind is highly malleable. It is highly changeable. So
change it, but
sorry?
it can be controlled.
Yes, it is highly changeable. Mind, we are not a passive participant. We can at any point in time we can monitor what we are thinking about. So what we think, so we become like. So if we think about the Parama Purusha, then we can become like the Parama Purusha. We can become that infinite entity. But if you're constantly thinking about the stula things in the world, then our mind also becomes crudified. Mind becomes stula. So yoga is a science which helps us in this, to help us to do the sadhana, to do the concentrated thinking, where we can think about the infinite and elevate our mind and attain our ultimate goal of life, attain the lakshyam of yoga, which is to realize the infinite. Okay, going further, so we talked about sadhana, we talked about meditation, right? Actually talking a little bit more about meditation. So what is sadhana or the meditation? Sadhana means efforts or chesta. sadhana is called meditation, it means efforts or chesta. So when we say chesta or efforts, we can do efforts in various areas. It can be in any area we can do sadhana, right? Whether it is sangeet sadhana, we can do sadhana in the area of sangeet sadhana. We can do sadhana in the area of some carpentry. We can do sadhana in the area of some literary thing. We can do sadhana in the area of science. So we can do sadhana in pretty much any area. But when we say sadhana of those things, we always have something before. We say carpentry sadhana, we say the sadhana science sadhana. So like that we have something before the word sadhana. But when we just say sadhana, what it means is yoga sadhana. So even though we don't say yoga, but when we say sadhana, it means yoga sadhana. Even if when one does not precede the word with a specific term, then we are referring to yoga sadhana, the adhyatmic sadhana. That is, one is trying to identify oneself with the infinite. The way of doing that is to think about the infinite. So there is a technique, there is a paddhati for doing sadhana, and we will be learning about that paddhati. So I might have mentioned in the WhatsApp group that we are going to have a yoga shivir in December. Those of you interested can join us. It is very beneficial. It will be on the banks of Ganges, most likely in Varanasi. So you can be learning the actual paddhati of sadhana over there, and also you'll be learning about asanas and many more things in the shivir. So there is a particular paddhati for the yoga sadhana. So those of you are interested in learning that, you're most welcome to join the shivir in December. So here, coming to the point on sadhana. Sadhana is meditation, and there is a specific technique for doing the sadhana by expressly dedicating the mind to thinking about the infinite. We do the concentrated thinking on the infinite. Doing concentrated thinking on the infinite is called as sadhana. So the mind becomes as it thinks. As you think, so you become. That is the key, that is the bija, that is the kendra of yogic life. So it is not just enough to say aham brahmasmi. It is to become that Brahma. So how do you do that? How do you become that Brahma? So that is the key. That is the key essence of yogic life. How to become that Brahma, how to realize that Brahma. That is the essence of yogic life. So sadhana, even though the yoga has many angas, sadhana is the seed of yogic life. It is the key. So it is the concentrated contemplation on the infinite is called as sadhana. So in sadhana, one constantly contemplates on the infinite, and there is a method for doing sadhana. So yoga is a very practical science. Yoga is a very practical science. So one second, yeah. So yoga is a very practical science. Even though we say that we have to do concentrated thinking, so it is not easy to think about the infinite. It is not easy to do a concentrated thinking in the beginning. So there is a specific method for doing it, and we have to realize that the mind is just like a monkey. It is just like a monkey. So even when you sit down and close your eyes to do concentrated thinking, the mind constantly wavers. It keeps jumping from one topic to another. It is just like a monkey. It is always restless. It is just moving from one point to another, or it's just jumping from one branch to another. So or it is like a three-year-old boy, right? If there is a 3-year-old boy, Shyam, if you say, hey Shyam, sit down quietly here, will that boy sit? Will that child sit? No, he will not sit. He will be going from here and there. He'll be doing this and that. So there is no way he will sit down. So the mind is also like that. It is not going to sit. It is not going to do concentrated thinking. It is not going to be sitting on a particular topic. It is going to be constantly going from one item to another, which we all have experience of that. So when we say sadhana, when we say doing concentrated thinking, it is not an easy thing. There will be obstacles along the way. There is obstacles along the way, but we will be learning about the paddhati and how to handle these obstacles. That is what becomes the goal of life, how to overcome these obstacles in sadhana. So there is no doubt struggle, but there is also help available. There is a meditation, that meditation, and there is a help available how you can do the concentrated thinking. So essentially you sit down in padmasana, close your eyes, and you do the meditation. Initially you will have to struggle. So we've been talking about the struggle between the manava dharma and the pasu dharma. So even in the when you do the sadhana, your pasu dharma is going to be pulling you down into different topics. Then you still have to do the struggle, just like how you do a struggle in your day-to-day life. At every minute of the day you're going to do a struggle between, you always have a choice whether you want to follow the animal dharma or the pasu dharma. Same way, when you're doing the sadhana also, there is a struggle between the pasu dharma and manava dharma. So you're going to have challenges in the beginning, but eventually when you're persistent and you're consistently following whatever you're supposed to do, then eventually you will get success, but it just needs the dedication and determination. So that is what is the sadhana or meditation, right? So this is just a parichaya, this is just an introduction of sadhana. It's not that we have covered everything. Just as an introduction to yoga, we are talking about sadhana. We'll be learning about this meditation sadhana aspect. We have a detailed karapatra later coming up, so we will be learning about the sadhana in detail at that point in time. So here we are having only a brief introduction. Okay, so these two slides on sadhana, anybody, so Chandra Mohoday, do you want to take these two slides, explain what we talked about?
I'll try. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mohoday.
Oh, thank you. I think, as we said, sadhana, which is a means to try to control our mind, and the reason to try to control our mind is that's the yogic methodology to achieve merging with the infinite, to the ego to merge with the Brahman, is to release ego to recognize the Brahman. And so we talk about sadhana, which meditation is one of the sadhanas that is in the yogic way of life, and that it enables us to get our mind to concentrate and contemplate endlessly on.
Mohoday, are you speaking? I'm sorry, are you speaking from a speaker?
Yeah.
Its voice quality is not very clear.
Yeah, I have this Bluetooth.
Oh, Bluetooth. Yeah, it's the voice is little muddled.
I'll try to speak a little louder and let's see if that helps.
Yes, Mohoday. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So it's sadhana is the seed of the yogic life. It's really the method to help concentrate the mind on the infinite. Concentrate the mind and endlessly and constantly think about the goal of life. Constantly think about the infinite. Constantly think about Brahman. And that way, that would enable the Jivatma to go merge towards, to move towards Paramatma and merge with Paramatma. So we will talk more about the meditation the technique of how one can control the mind, how we can get the mind to concentrate on one single thought, the thought of Brahman, the thought of uniting with Brahman. And that sadhana that we're going to look into further as we go through the course, the meditation.
Yes, Mom. Yeah. You want to say something?
Does that cover?
Yeah. Yes, it does cover. Yeah, I was able to hear you. Yes, it covers. So what I'm actually going to do is, some people had problem hearing your what you spoke. I was able to hear, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask another person to repeat it. So how about Priya Bhagni? Do you want to summarize what we just talked about one more time?
Bhagini, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
So what we were talking about is, initially the mind takes on the form of whatever we think about. So constantly what we think about is what our mind takes on the form of, and so in this sadhana is very useful, and it also means effort. We have to put in the necessary effort for it, and you had also said that we will be learning the details of it in Shibiram. There is a method for it, and that method is okay. We as of one now, what I understood is that we sit down and in Padmasana, and then we contemplate on the infinite. That is the true goal of human life.
Yeah, that is the kendra of yogic life. That's correct. So yeah, just one thing I will add is that the mind becomes like what it thinks. So if you think about something subtle, then the mind gets elevated. Mind also becomes subtle. If you think about crude things, then the mind becomes crude. The mind is completely malleable. It is changeable. So we are not a passive participant in this. So we can take control of it at any point in time. We can know what our mind is thinking about, what we are attracted towards. So the goal of sadhana is to get the practice of concentrated thinking, to do the concentrated thinking, to do mindful concentration. And when you do the concentration on the infinite, so the mind gets elevated. When you keep doing sadhana, we can't do sadhana 24 hours of the day, but we do the sadhana. Whenever we do sadhana, we are going to think about the infinite. And even the rest of the day, when we are not doing sadhana, there is a technique for how you can keep your mind elevated. What are the things that you can do to keep your mind elevated, keep your mind focused on that infinite entity? So it is not just the period of sadhana that you're thinking about the infinite. Even when you're not doing sadhana, at that point in time also, how you can manage the activities of your life in such a way that you're thinking about the infinite at every step of the way. Okay. So, and also we said that doing sadhana is not, doing meditation is not easy. There will be obstacles in the beginning. The mind is very chanchal, so it just keeps jumping from one area to another, one topic to another. So there will be a struggle, and the yogi realizes the struggle and he welcomes the struggle. So yogi, he doesn't get challenged by the struggle. He welcomes the struggle. He realizes that the struggle is an indication for progress. So if you don't have struggle, then there is no indication of practice, of progress. So without struggle you cannot proceed. So abhyasena, by doing constant practice, slowly your mind will start focusing. So you should not give up. So the thing is, you have to constantly practice, and you have to with the courage you have to proceed further. So by just doing for 2 days and you think that, oh, my mind is not able to focus, I don't want to continue this, no, I will not give up, because we realize it's a constant struggle. A yogi, he is very positive, he accepts the struggle and he proceeds further, realizing the struggle, and he understands that the struggle is an indication of success. Without struggle there is no success. So struggle is an indication of success. He accepts the struggle and he proceeds, and over a period of time you yourself will realize that there is a progress, there is a positive progress. You'll realize as a practical experience. So that is why yoga is a practical science. Okay, so we talked about sadhana. So now just moving forward, so the we reached up to the point of what a yogi wants, right? When we say yogi, who is a yogi? Yogi ityatra, yogi iti, for those people who know Sanskrit, yogi iti ini pratyanta shabdah. Ini yogin iti nakarantah, yogin. Yogaha asya asmin va. Yogaha, the yoga that is there, in whom the practice of yoga is going on. The person in whom the practice of yoga is going on is a yogi. The yogi is somebody who is practicing yoga. You see, he is a yogi. So yogi ini pratyanta shabdah. So this, a person who is a yogi, it is not defined by the clothing. It is not defined by the orange clothes, the kashaya vastra. It is not defined by the clothing, or it is not defined where that person lives, whether he lives in an ashram or he lives in a house in a city. It has nothing to do with it. You can be a yogi even living in a city. Whether somebody is a yogi or not is purely dependent on whether they are involved in the activities of yoga or not. So whether somebody is leading a yogic life is not dependent on their clothes, or is not dependent on where a person lives, right? So we are actually talking yogi means you're talking about the yogic life or the yogic practices that person is doing. So yogi has nothing to do with any of these formalities, the dress or the place. Yoga is a science of the mind. It is a practical science, and we are talking about the mind becoming as one thinks. If we are thinking about 10 rupee note, then the mind will become very crude, like the 10 rupee note. If one thinks about the infinite, then one will become the infinite. So we all know that the mind is not easy to control. It's not easy to control. It is like compared to a monkey, or like a 3-year-old child. Like if you have a 3-year-old child and you say, oh, hey Sham, sit down here, it is not going to sit down here. Do you think the 3-year-old will sit down? Just one second. Yeah, it's not going to sit. So the mind is like that. It cannot be easily controlled. We can say that mind is going to do dedicated thinking to the infinite. It is just one thing to say, and it is another thing to actually do it. So yoga is a practical science which will teach us how to do that. When you say practical, it means that yoga gets applied in every action that we do in every minute of the day. All the time, 24 hours of the day, we are practicing yoga. There are many facets of many aspects to this yoga. There are many facets to this yoga. So it's practical because we are going to apply this yogic science in every action we do each day, in every minute of the day. All the time we are going to be practicing yoga. So okay, further, okay, so in order to discuss this yogic science, there is a concept that I want to put before you, the concept that this mind and its concentration on the infinite, being the very goal of life. The concentration on the infinite and attaining that infinite is the supreme goal of life. So being the manava dharma, being that manava dharma that we talked about, each person has within them the desire for the infinite. So they do not understand this fact, just like a small baby who's trying to put its thumb into its mouth when it is hungry and does not understand what the solution is, right? That is a fact, that when it is hungry it does not understand. Every human being having this infinite desire, but we do not understand that fact. But those whose eyes are open to this fact engage themselves in this yogic life, engage themselves in this endeavor to think in a concentrated way on the infinite. So there is a struggle means it is like overcoming the obstacle, understanding that the way the mind thinks, so it becomes. So they begin to move in that direction. They also find that there are obstacles to moving ahead. There is a sangarsha, there is a struggle, and the yogi actually welcomes that struggle. He moves ahead, he welcomes that struggle and moves ahead. So like for instance, if I can give you an example. So if you want to walk, right, if you want to walk, you want to take a step in any direction. If you want to walk, your foot has to have a traction on the ground. The traction is created by friction. So we need to have the friction on the ground in order to move. So then you push the foot back and to move forward, right? We can move ahead when the foot gets traction on the ground. Otherwise, if it pushes back, for instance, then like for instance, if you're on the frozen lake, then if you push backwards, the foot goes back instead of pushing you forward. But on the ground, when you walk, you take a step back to you go forward, right? There is a progress, even though there seems like an obstacle, but there is a progress. So if you want to walk, your foot has to have traction on the ground. That is created by friction, and that is how you move forward, right? That is how you move forward. So in order to move forward, move ahead in any direction in life, whether it is physical or psychic, it needs traction. And that sangarsha is pushing against obstacles. That is what allows one to move ahead. And this struggle is inevitable. And it has to be welcomed by a yogi. So on this slide on yogi, who wants to? So Krutika Bagni, do you want to talk about this slide?
Am I audible?
Yes, Bagin.
Yeah, so as we said, yogi is a person who practices the art of yoga, the science of yoga, sorry, and it has got nothing to do with his clothing or where he stays or his lifestyle. It is something that he follows, is the way he, his dincharya, his whole day, how he thinks. It's not only when he is sitting down and doing sadhana. It is in the whole day how he manages himself and how he connects, which will be taught, how he connects with the infinite. So his activities is totally engaged in the yogic process. And though there will be struggles, and a yogi accepts those struggles, and it is a kind of thing that, okay, I am moving forward, and that so his he welcomes those struggles and tries to move ahead with persistence and with dedication, and sits continuously. He doesn't give up, and he continuously puts in effort to do his sadhana on a regular basis.
Very nicely said. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so that is sadhana. So the sadhana is the process of sitting down, closing your eyes, sitting in padmasana and doing meditation. That is what is sadhana. But there are sadhana angas which are all the helping processes which yogi engages in order to create an atmosphere in which the mind can progress, right? Those all the sadhana angas will help the yogi to progress further, right? It will make the sadhana more easier. It will make it more enjoyable process. So what do we actually mean by that? The mind can flourish is because the mind resides in the body, right? The mind resides in the body, just like we all live in our house. whatever the house may be. We live in a house or an apartment that we live in, whatever it may be, but that environment of that place where we live in actually impacts. So now we are going to slightly switch gears. Going to talk about the body, right? The mind. So we talked about the mind, the sadhana for the mind, so the mind can get the union with the infinite. How do we do that, and what are all the helping processes? It means that the place where the mind resides, that place should be in a pristine condition. So which is the place in which the mind resides? It resides in the body. So the health of the body is extremely important for a yogi. The health of a body is extremely important. So we should opt to reside in an environment that is conducive, or that is anukula, to be able to engage in that yogic process, to be able to engage in what we want to engage. So the body must be an ideal environment so that the mind can engage in what it want to engage. So the body should be a conducive environment. So specifically we're talking about the mind being a resident in the body. So the body should be conducive. It should provide a conducive environment for the mind, and to that end, the yogis realized this a long time ago. The body needs to be very healthy. If the body is healthy, then it gives a proper environment for the mind. If the body is diseased, then there is no way that person can sit in sadhana and do meditation. He will be agitated. He will not even be able to sit down in meditation. Let's say that if somebody has problem with their legs, there is no way that person is going to sit down on the ground and do meditation. So the first aspect that yoga addresses, how to keep your body in a healthy state. Not only healthy, actually, in fact, in a pristine condition, beyond healthy. How do you keep your body in a pristine condition, in a well synchronized, harmonized manner, so that you're able to engage in the yogic activities, you're able to do sadhana, right? So in order to engage in the yogic life, you need to have a healthy body, you need to have a conducive environment for the mind. So that conducive environment is the body, and the body needs to be healthy. That means all the glands in the body should work properly. All the glands of the body should be working in a synchronized manner. The body has a certain vibration. Actually speaking, everything in this world has a certain vibration to it, right? The entire world is spandanatmakam, right? Entire world is spandanatmakam. Everything, each and everything has a certain vibration to it, and we can measure those vibrations. If we are listening to a song, we can tell what the frequency is. We can measure the frequency of each sound depending on the volume, pitch, the frequency of the sound. You can measure the sound. The same way, people who are engaged in physics, they know this whole world, the entire universe, from the stone. They know that everything in this world, from a stone or the wood, everything is vibrational. Everything has its own spandan, has its own vibration. So in the same way, the body also has a spandan. The body is also vibrational. So the vibration from the body is not conducive to the mind, then the mind is not going to get elevated. So the entire universe is vibrational. Every object has vibration, and even the body has a vibration. Everything has vibration. So when the body is engaged in doing the asanas, yogasanas, so we said that we have to elevate the mind. So we have to keep the body healthy, and to keep the body healthy, we also do the yogasanas. And to keep the body healthy, one aspect is yogasana. And if the body is engaged in doing yogasana, then the body becomes more sattvic. So for the maintaining the health of the body, one aspect is yogasana, and the other aspect is actually food, ahara. So we'll be talking about ahara also in the next class. We'll be talking about yogasana and ahara. We'll have detailed discussion on ahara from the next class. So when we talk about these practical aspects, so it is not just theory. It is not just that we hear in the class and we go back home and do what we were doing before. We need to be very conscious and consciously adopting these changes in your life to see the spectacular impact it has on your health and your mind. So unless you implement it, it is just going to be the talk, right? There is no use of such a thing. So in order to get benefit from or attain the purpose for which you guys have all come to this yoga session, you need to start implementing. So from the next class we'll be talking about things we can implement practically in our life to make positive changes and to move further. And also when we talk about changes to the ahara, to the food, you yourself will see that it helps in getting rid of many diseases. Many diseases. There is so many so many people who have actually followed these practices. They've come back and shared their success stories with us. So you need to have the positive frame of mind and slowly start implementing these changes to see the benefits. So having said that, I will say that from next class we'll be talking about the ahara, asanas and ahara. So we will wrap the session now. Do anybody has any questions? Okay, then we'll wrap the session now. Thank you so much. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Sorry, Bhagini. I'll listen to the class.